Hello and Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Telenor Velocity, Computer World Pakistan Demo, and Google, we'd like to welcome you to this panel discussion. Let me just give you an overview of what we're trying to do here. Basically, Google has partnered with Telenor Velocity to produce a Digital Hackfair, the second edition. They held this earlier as well. And what they are doing this time differently is that they're focusing on women empowerment, and the hackathon will span across 2 weeks, where all teams and all participants will be thoroughly guided, mentored, and coached on how to use Google technologies in different verticals. So the verticals are very interesting because it's actually something that's very needed in Pakistan, and we've also seen a lot of global development in each of these areas. And similarly, what we're doing here is that we have tried to bring in one person from each of these diverse verticals that we're talking about, which includes fintech, it includes health tech, it includes agri-tech, and it includes health tech and cyber security. So each of these verticals will be covered, and we'll sort of take a deep dive into how products, local solutions are developed on local challenges. And each one of the people on our panel today will be talking about the problems that they faced in building these solutions, and we will take you on a ride on their journey. Um, with that, I'd quickly like to introduce each one of my panelists here. Let me quickly add them on. So we have Halima Iqbal from Iran. She's representing the fintech industry. We have Dr. Sara Said Khurram. She is representing the health tech industry from Sehat Kahani. We have Khala Kareem, who runs SheSec, which is a community of cybersecurity professionals. We have Mr. Mansoor, who represents Telenor Agri-tech. And we have Anam Sadiq, the founder and CEO of EdCasa. So each one of these verticals, that we talked about, will be sort of explored upon. And what we're going to discuss today is the different challenges that even when we receive entries from each of these participants, a lot of the challenges that they faced or have identified is that how to get or like how to focus on a particular problem. Back when we were in college, we were always told to focus on your research. Make that research case for yourself, make that hypothesis, and then develop your research case on it. And that's something that's very valid in today's world when we're talking about digital technologies as well. So that's how what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly give the floor to each one of my participants, each one of my panelists today. And Halima, if we can start with you, just quickly have a brief intro from each one of you before we move on to the main question.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on this panel. Super excited to be here and sharing this with my fellow entrepreneurs. I am Halima. I am the CEO and founder of Uran. Uran is Pakistan's first women-focused financial technology platform.
Thank you, Sarah. Can we hear from you?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Aksa, for inviting me. I'm very happy to represent the digital health industry. I'm Sara. I run Sehat Kahani, which is a telemedicine company that connects female doctors to patients all across Pakistan using an chat, audio, and video-based telemedicine solution.
Thank you. Over to you, Khala.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Akshay, for having us. Basically, my name is Khala Kareem. I'm running SheSec Pakistan. SheSec Pakistan is the first community founded by ladies in Pakistan who are trying to empower women in cybersecurity. So there's a huge gap, gender gap in cybersecurity with women there. So SheSec Pakistan is basically empowering women in cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Mansoor sir.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be a part of this very vibrant conversation, hopefully. The name is Mansoor. I look after one of the product verticals within the digital division in Telenor. So I try to manage the agri-tech portfolio, which is a part of the rural sort of segment offering for Telenor, because with bulk of the subscriber base for Telenor being from the rural areas, we have agri-tech as a standalone vertical where we look at bridging the sort of fulfilling the needs of the farmers who are then also our customers. So looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Anam. Mm, Anam, I can't hear you. So I'll just jump in instead, and I'll tell you all that Anam is the co-founder of EdCasa, an edtech platform based out of Pakistan. I can't hear you at all. Yeah, Anam, if you don't mind trying without your video, that might work better. But in the interest of time, what we'll do is we will start off, and then whenever Anam rejoins, we will continue and take it from there. I'd like one of you to start with sharing your own initial thought process. As an entrepreneur, I know that the idea might have come to you for each one of your verticals. The idea might have come to you maybe as a passion project, maybe as a gap that you had identified in the work that you've been doing. But I'd really like to hear about, how far you've come in your journey. Something when we start, we have our own sort of mindset and what we're looking to do or looking to achieve, or looking to empower. How has that developed or changed over the years that you've actually, and a lot of times it happens, कि हम जब actually field में काम करते हैं, it's completely different. There are 10 other challenges that actually pop up. So if any of you would like to sort of volunteer to start this.
Sorry, Aksa, I just want to check if my mic is working now.
I can take it.
Yeah.
So Anam, do you want to introduce yourself quickly and I can jump in then?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alima. Hi, everybody. Assalamu alaikum to all the panelists and the audience. Thanks, Aksa, for having us. It's amazing to see all these women come together, transforming their own sectors. My name is Anam. I'm the Chief Education Officer and co-founder of EdCasa. I describe myself as a very optimistic educator, and I believe that education can really bridge the gap between the world that we have and the world that we want. So that's it for me, and over to you, Halima.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Anam. So I was, for me, when I first moved back to Pakistan, my background is in banking. And I moved back, I didn't come back with any kind of agenda, but I started facing problems myself as a woman trying to access financial services in this market. So much so that it took me about 3.5 months to just open up a basic bank account, right? Which actually led me to start researching as to what is happening in the market. And if there is such a big disparity, how are large majority of the population banking and accessing financial services? It started out with really understanding the problem and the magnitude of the problem, and then went on to work very, very closely with people on ground. So it was still on research phase, understanding the customer, understanding their personas, and also segmenting it, because the market is so large in Pakistan, the problem is so big, especially when it comes to finance. We started figuring out what is that audience we want to cater to begin with. And as you start understanding and listening to the customer, you actually start figuring out what is that solution you want to be able to build. But one thing that was very, very clear, and it still holds true at Uran, we're fixated to the problem we want to solve for, and solution keeps on evolving around it and started getting matured as the journey goes by. But there's no one set ideology. We're going to solve it this way only, and this no matter what happens. It's always about working with the customer, understanding their problems, and then being able to find a business opportunity within that. So that's been our journey, and that's how we constantly keep evolving as well.
So Sarah, we'd love to hear from you. I know that, of course, because you're a doctor, I would say for sure that you haven't taken the traditional path. And, we've seen you through your journey, but we'd love to hear about, how it's been for you. And I think you started with tackling one little problem. And I think you opened that Pandora's box and, you've been trying to cater to all those issues, the challenges that we face in the health industry.
To my house. So it's nice to see you again. Um, just from I think when I started, the initial concept that we started with was that a lot of female doctors don't work after marriage or responsibility in Pakistan, and there is a way to connect them to a population which is underserved for healthcare and never sees a doctor in their lifetime. And the simplest solution is to connect them through the power of technology, which we call telemedicine, in which a patient sitting anywhere in the world can access it also surpasses the issues of accessibility, the issues of affordability for patients. When we started with an idea to do this in low-income communities, so we started upgrading nurses' clinics in low-income communities and placed our software there. So when a patient came, they get connected to an online doctor through a nurse. Um, it was very nice we were building these clinics, but we realized that if we have to become a sustainable company, we have to have a high revenue vertical as well. What we need to do is replicate the same for a mass user who has access to smartphone, just eliminating the nurse out of the picture. So we started working on a mobile app that allows patients to connect to a doctor using a smartphone app as well. And though the idea worked in my mind, when I explained this to a lot of other people that we were working at that time, everyone thought that clinics were okay because it's a nice social mission. We're female founders. It's something that, it suits our cadre, but working on a commercial technology based solution as well, because we knew that a mass market also needed access to doctors. So today, our company is divided into two verticals. We have clinics for low income communities that we run with pride, but we'll also have a very robust application that allows patients to connect to users using a smartphone, and corporates use it, retail users use it. So I think if I had to speak about my journey, I think it's just innovating yourself and evolving yourself and testing your limits as a founder, believing in the end purpose. So our end purpose was connecting patients, making sense together, if you have the right purpose on top.
So I'll take this to Anam. Anam, we've seen a lot of people now working or venturing into tech ed, especially given that in the last 1.5 year, all of it has completely revolutionized. I think, and globally, and it's not just in Pakistan but world over. We've seen that change. But what you guys have started building was way before the pandemic, I believe. Tell us about it. How, of course, you guys have also had to evolve especially in the last 1.5 year.
Absolutely. Like the founders, talking about commitment to the need and the user, what they want to see. That's what Edcasa's journey has been as well. We started it with the fact, like this is one fact that still like completely jars me, is that a lot of students who are going to school right now are having very low learning outcomes. About 40% of them are unable to graduate from their matriculation and intermediate exams. And already, it's a very few percentage of people who are actually getting to that point. About 22, 23 million students are out of school. So, I mean, with the knowledge-based economy, it's a real problem now for Pakistan's skill set to be so low. So that's what was the trigger point for us. We started at CASA in 2017 with a human-centered research design in mind, that what is happening? Why are these students scoring so poorly? And the answer was pretty simple. It was because they didn't have access to quality teachers, and it was not affordable for a lot of students to get this kind of access. So based on these two, sort of quality and affordability, That's how CASA started. And the journey's been really interesting, like as you mentioned, that we were one of the early ones in the market. And at that point, learning online was a fairly new concept. People used to say, hey, bache to, in any case, they don't even study. They need the stick and the carrot to keep them engaged. So how are they going to be watching video content and actually learning, like so self-guided and so on? So we put up material, on YouTube. We wanted to see if there's actually traction for it and need for it. And what we found was that actually students were very interested in, they were looking for such a solution. Very instantly, our YouTube channel grew. We created about 1,000 videos and uploaded them, and the traction was great. Then we pivoted to live online classes, again, very low cost, because we knew that's the need of the user at that point. We started Facebook Live sessions. We did that for about a year. And obviously, being educators, these platforms aren't designed for a learning journey where you can test students and have your teachers, being in their element and so on. So then we gravitated towards the app. We raised our first round, and then we built the app. And the traction's been really great since then. And the pandemic has definitely, changed user behavior with regards to, school closures. The need for such a solution has become ever more. But sorry. So are you saying something, or is there maybe some disruption at my end? I don't know, my internet's being a little problematic. But what I'm saying is that while COVID did change user behavior, I feel that the requirement of having accessible and affordable solution is still there. And that's where CASA comes in a big way. It's a huge need of the hour right now. So that's been our journey so far.
Thank you so much, Anam. Paula, we'll circle back to you. You talked about building a community, and that's something that's also been identified as one of the biggest challenges, because traditionally, and I think all the different verticals that are sitting here, generally, I think that acceptance that women can actually build products, cater to products, and develop solutions or to the problems that exist in each one of these verticals. I think that in itself has been such a challenge. But we're slowly coming to accept it. So I'd love to hear from you on, building that community of cybersecurity professionals, because there aren't very many, I think, professionals that we see at the forefront, at least.
So basically, when I started off with my career in cybersecurity, there weren't any female colleagues that I could find around myself. So I had that in my mind that there is a gap of gender gap in cybersecurity. Then with the growing years, there came an international event where it was highlighted that the event didn't have much women in the panel, and there weren't any inclusion in that scenario. So that's where it clicked me and my co-founder Ifran Man. We decided to build, because we were a few women that we all were connected, but then we wanted to have some centralized point or centralized community where women who are trying to get into cybersecurity, or women who want to perform or who want to participate, should have a platform to do so. So that's where it clicked, and from there we took the initiative of SheSec Pakistan, which is the only Pakistan-based community in cybersecurity for women. With the SheSec Pakistan, we are trying to give a few technical trainings. We are trying to give career counseling for the women who are trying to get into the field of cybersecurity, and we are actually trying to portray that in the field of cybersecurity, we are getting women recruited. We are having a platform for them. Other than this, the women are not only limited to other aspects of technical parts, as in technology. It is actually considered that women are making only 20% of the society of technical industry. So yeah, that's what we are trying to work on, getting women into the field, getting women into the getting women accepted actually into the field. That's what we are working on.
Wonderful. I think that resonates with each one of us on different levels. Mansoor Sahab, I'd love to hear from you on, technology has definitely enabled all of us to to expand that horizon. And just Khala ne bhi baat ki, and by the way, sorry, there's also been a request that we should try and keep this bilingual, so I'm going to try and keep shifting. I'd love to hear from you on how technology has enabled that empowerment. When we're talking about more and more inclusion, when we're talking about building these products and solutions with getting more women on board. I'd love to hear from you on some of the initiatives that even Telenor has taken in terms of agri-tech and technology कैसे obviously उस चीज को enable कर रहा है.
Right. So thank you, Aksa. Very, very happy to hear from the ladies in terms of what they've initiated, what they've been able to achieve. Also, want to touch upon something that I think Dr. Sara said, pertaining to the problems that as they go deeper into their journeys, the problems that they see, the customer problems they see in terms of replicating, in terms of use cases increasing, that's actually a very good thing for Pakistan's startup ecosystem, because that is what actually creates opportunities and sort of multiply that to the kind of population we have, and it's very hard to fail. If you have the right solution for the right problem, then I think that anybody who's an entrepreneur today has a very exciting journey ahead of them. So I see that as a good problem to have in terms of the number of use cases increasing, right? Also, I think, like you said, like you mentioned, Aksa, technology is an opportunity equalizer. And being on the telco side of things where we meet so many people, many of them are not based in Pakistan. They're tech entrepreneurs working to solve problems here. Um, so if I just look at the geographical aspects of it, other problems, I think somebody else also mentioned in terms of opening bank accounts and ease of doing business and so on and so forth. I think as a whole, technology, as we evolve, as we grow, as sort of fintech penetration increases and so on and so forth, you'll see that this equalization of opportunity will manifest itself in more than one ways, right? And if I talk specifically about the kind of portfolio we have at Telenor, we're addressing a number of use cases, be it health on the rural side, using IVR as a call-based platform where there is not so much digital penetration as we speak, or it be giving access to sort of legal advice, or it be specialized sort of advice on crop health. I think that we only touched the tip of the iceberg. There are so many things that remain to be solved. In terms of the value chain itself, if I only look at agri-tech, there are three aspects to it. There's the input side, then there's the production, and there's access to market. One of our services is Khoshal Angan, which is purely a women-centric service. And what we do is that we try to address all the problems or all the kinds of content that we feel women in the rural areas, the kind of access to content that they need, we're trying to bridge that gap. For instance, we're addressing health issues. We're partnering with content providers who can help, address based on research the kind of issues ladies face on the rural side. Then, more importantly, I think in terms of the evolution itself, the evolution on the rural side is slow, but it's also happening. So, for instance, livestock, as we look at agri-tech research, we understand that livestock in most cases is managed by the women folk, and then they have no visibility in terms of the health of the animals, in terms of how to improve yield, and then once the animals are ready, how to sort of sell them to market. So they're dependent in most cases on their male counterparts and men of the family to sort of do that for them. um, and while we work on use cases such as marketplace and trying to get them access to rates and all, I think in 5 years or so, I think the women on the rural side particularly will be much more empowered in terms of managing some part of the value chain on their own, from production to selling. And I think that's, if you look at the kind of ratio they contribute, they're 50% or more. And then on the rural side, most of our economy is rural and agrarian. So you can imagine the quantum. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to speak about. And maybe we can touch on some other topics
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Thank you, thank you. That really details out, a lot of the initiatives and how you rightly said that इनका role वैसे भी बहुत central रहा है in developing or actually putting in the work. It's just that now I think more and more acceptance in terms of women coming to the forefront and leading each one of these verticals that we're talking about today. I'd really like to hear from each one of you on, some of the challenges that participants from this hackathon and otherwise a lot of young developers or people who want to really work on solutions in Pakistan. How do you, in your opinion or in your career journey, how have you been able to, of course, identify that problem, but also build solutions from a very local perspective? A lot of the global cases that we look at are obviously not relevant here, right? Halima, like you mentioned, कि you came here, आपने फिर देखा कि यहाँ access to financial services is a big challenge. So I know that a lot of it sometimes stems from a personal challenge, and then we look around and there are hundreds of other people facing a similar or even worse situation sometimes. And then of course we add on that stack or build onto that. Um, so, in order to help even these participants who are trying to build those solutions, how would you tell them to sort of identify and then focus on that one little problem? Because I know that it happens that sometimes when we're trying to change the world, there's so much that we want to do, but of course bringing that focus into one particular thing or area, how do we make that possible?
I think I can go first. So I think it comes back to understanding the problem itself, right? The depth of the problem, and to be able to understand कि आपको बनाना किसके लिए है. And when you understand the audience, you also then start figuring out कि उनकी digital literacy क्या है, उनकी literacy levels क्या किस किस्म के. हमारे case में it's like, what is their financial literacy looking like? How do you build that experience in terms of what language does she understand? What time is she available to be able to access financial services? So going into the depth of understanding the personas and understanding the customer only helps you build a better solution. And one thing I think which is very true, at least in our case, that technology is just an enabler, right? It's not the only solution. So building technology is expensive and it takes time to get it right, but start from paper and pencil and try to figure out कि market में क्या हो रहा है, problem क्या है, how does a customer also want to be approached and interacted with, which a lot of times we forget when we're building. So keeping the customer at the center of your everything that you want to be able to solve for and everything you want to be able to build is very, very important. And I think in our case, it's extremely important, especially when for the first time the woman is coming online faster and getting access to capital faster as well, right? So how do you build, how do you design, how do you simplify concepts for her that she might not necessarily understand, and how do you build that trust? How do you allow her to come into the financial space, which is predominantly, or those transactions that are predominantly done by her male counterpart? How are you allowing her to take that control over her financial life and continue building that community around her? So I think that's been extremely important in our case.
And I think that resonates with what Anam was also trying to say, that even though the pandemic has probably helped them in telling people that it is possible to to get educate like the best of education or educational tools available online. But the fact is that just keeping in touch with your customers or the end point. And Mansoor Saab also said end point, हमें end में ये देखना है कि किसको फायदा हो रहा है. I can build a great product and I can have get a $1 billion valuation, but then what is the utility or the service or the benefit that I'm providing to a larger group? So Sarah and Anam, we'd love to hear from you both on this, because it's also solutions that you are providing in different fields that of course talk about what Halima has already mentioned. So Sarah, we can start with you.
Yeah. I think I'll second what Halima said, that understanding the customer is very important. Something that we learned along the way was कि it's very important to test the product. हम कभी
Okay, it is Sarah's internet, it's not mine. And we'll give it to you, and I think on Sarah, maybe she can plug back in.
Sure, Aksa. It's a really interesting question you asked, and I think it's a very important one for an entrepreneur to wrap their head around before they get into this journey. So first you said, K, how do you sort of shortlist or prioritize what issue you want to work on? And the second is, how do you come around devising a solution for it? Both are like extremely big challenges, that you have to figure out before you get into this space, because entrepreneurship is not easy. It sounds really nice and attractive from the outside, but it is a very tough journey, one that you have to be extremely resilient for. So in terms of understanding what challenge you want to work on, I have like this the sleepless night challenge is what I call it. There are many issues in a society, and what is it one thing that takes away your sleep at night? What is that one thing that you keep thinking about again and again, trying to crack, and you feel that is closest to your heart and frustrates the hell out of you? So you shortlist that and you say, okay, now the next question to ask is, am I good at this? Am I good at do anything related to that? Like for me, I was really, really worried about the prospects of our youth. Like what happens to a child who's not graduated from ninth grade? What is that person going to do? And so such a large population of young under 30 kids in Pakistan, what jobs are they going to do if they're not graduated from metric? So that was a problem that would keep picking my mind. And having worked with the government and the largest school education system in Pakistan, private school and all that, I felt like the speed of execution was very slow. So I was like, okay, let's do something about it. Like it's frustrating me, it's making me pessimistic, it's making me feel bad. Like I want to do something about it. The second question, am I good at it? Yes, I worked in education for 10 years. I've got a degree in it. I don't know how good at it, but at least I have a skill set. Like I do believe that, it's something that I can make a dent in. And the third thing I think is very important to consider is, can you earn a livelihood from it? Because sustainability is really important. You have to not ignore the fact that you have your own requirements and your own needs, your families to sustain, yourself to sustain. You have your own personal goals. So that's how I think, it's actually a Japanese concept as well. It's a very popular book right now. It's called Ikigai. This is how the Japanese define that concept, with the intersection of what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can earn a livelihood from. That's your Ikigai. That's your purpose. Find that. The sooner you find it, the better it is for you. Now the solution side, right? Now you're an entrepreneur, you spend all these nights figuring out ये बहुत बड़ा मसला है, इसको कैसे solve करें, इसको ऐसे solve करें, ऐसे solve करें. You spend so much effort and your heart's gone into it. It's like your baby, and you say, ये बस ठीक है, I'm going to make YouTube videos and that's going to solve the problem. But guess what? You don't know if that's going to solve the problem. You go to the market, you realize, hey, the student really doesn't want it like this. They want like this and that and that. So a lot of times what happens is you work so hard, you're married to the solution you got. But you have to realize that it's not about you and what you have brainstormed. So it actually, you have to have a lot of resilience, and you have to give yourself that space. You have to distance yourself from an idea you love so dearly. And I think that's something that entrepreneurs ignore. They feel कि हमने इतना इसमें effort किया तो यही ठीक होगा. But at that point, you distance yourself, you test it out, you listen. Actually, if the consumer is telling you, मैं इसके लिए 200 रुपए दूंगा, 220 रुपए नहीं दूंगा, तो वो नहीं देगा. Like do that. Like keep testing different things out and believe your customer when they say something. So I think that's how you get closer and closer and closer to the solution. You have to keep iterating. Times are changing so fast. No solution is here, for a long term. You say, बस अब ये हो गया, and that's how it is.
That's something that COVID has really taught all of us, that nothing is going to be the way it is. I think in the next 2 weeks, we don't know, when the world shuts down and what happens next. So I think that one point that you made about that constant evolution. You have to keep talking to your customer, and Halima also said that you have to keep in touch with them to understand that how to simplify. At the end of the day, we need to see कि हम उनकी जिंदगी उस एक प्रॉब्लम के लिए, अगर आपने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया कि फाइनेंशियल चैलेंज है, आपने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया कि एजुकेशन या कम्युनिटी चैलेंज है, या एक हेल्थ का चैलेंज है, एंड ईच वन ऑफ दीज फील्ड्स आर it caters to everyone at large. Like if we're talking about agriculture, if we're talking about finance, if we're talking about technology, all of these fields are those that at different levels impact every human being who is living today. Financial जो है वो every social strata will be affected by how financial products are developed, and the way you said that each one of them have to be broken down and simplified for them. And Fala, with this, I'd like to hear comments from you on how you've developed that community, and you've also जैसे आपने कहा कि आपके दिमाग में तो ये था ना कि you don't have a community, or you don't have enough people to sort of build that community, like working relationship with, because there aren't enough women. But how has that evolved for you, if at all?
Basically, I would second Anam on this. Taking a feedback from the society or taking feedback from your audience helps you evolve what you're working on a lot. So we kind of started out as a Discord community. We kind of started out as a LinkedIn community, and then people kept telling us, go on this platform, moved to this platform, move to this platform, where people who are actually part of InfoSec, we can find people there, or people who are trying to get into InfoSec, we can find people there. So that's how we started out. We tried going out in different places. We tried marketing this, that we actually now have a platform. So if you want to be part of it, or if you want to show your skills or demonstrate your skills, you can come and you can coordinate with us, and we'll be happy to host you and everything. So that's how we started off. We started taking people's feedback. We started listening to people who were part of the industry for long. They were our male mentors, definitely. So the idea of the biggest challenge that we faced was being accepted, because we were all so young and we were all just so new in the industry, and the fact that we had to be accepted to be recognized, and after we are recognized, only then people are going to trust us and get into the community and learn from us. So our main focus was just that, to be accepted, and for that we have to evolve our methods for it. So that's how we did it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We will take it back to you.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible now. Is it better?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. So I think I just want to second what the other guests were saying, that it's important to talk to your customer. I'll give you a very small example in our case. हमने जब अपने clinics में अपना solution लगाया था, तो एक बड़े मजे की चीज़ हमने देखी कि जब patients आते थे, the best thing they liked was कि जब वो कंप्यूटर के सामने बैठते हैं और एकदम से उनको डॉक्टर मिल जाता है. अब एक ऐसा बंदा जिसको बहुत ट्रैवल करके डॉक्टर के पास जाना पड़ता है, या किसी को 2-3 बसें बदल के डॉक्टर के पास जाना पड़ता है, उसके लिए डॉक्टर के सामने जाके बैठ जाना एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ थी. जब हमने अपनी ऐप बनाई तो हमने इस चीज़ को रेप्लिकेट किया. तो हमने अपनी ऐप इस तरीके से बनाई कि जब आप हमारी ऐप पे आते हैं तो दूसरी स्क्रीन के ऊपर 60 सेकंड्स के अंदर आपको डॉक्टर मिल जाता है. सो यू क्लिक अ बटन एंड विद इन 60 सेकंड्स यू गेट कनेक्टेड टू अ डॉक्टर. हम जब भी अपने पेशेंट से फीडबैक लेते हैं, जो एक चीज़ वो सबसे ज़्यादा हाईली रिकमेंड करते हैं वो ये कि हमें वो जो 60 सेकंड के अंदर डॉक्टर मिलता है वो हमें बहुत अच्छा लगता है. एक दूसरी चीज़ जो हमने की, जब हम एक नए वर्टिकल में एंटर कर रहे थे, जो हमारा ऐप का वर्टिकल है, तो हमने, क्योंकि हमें नहीं पता था कि लोग किस तरह रिएक्ट करेंगे इसके ऊपर, सो हमने ये सोचा कि हम हर पेशेंट से जो हमारी ऐप पे कॉल करेगा उससे हम फीडबैक लेंगे. तो जो भी यूज़र हमारी ऐप पे आता था, इनिशियली हम हर किसी को कॉल बैक करके उससे फीडबैक लेते थे. और वो जो 3 से 6 महीने की एक्सरसाइज हमने की शुरू में, वो हमें बहुत बेनिफिशियल हुई, क्योंकि उससे हमें पता लगा कि कस्टमर्स को क्या चीज़ पसंद आ रही है, क्या चीज़ नहीं पसंद आ रही है. अब हम हर पेशेंट से नहीं लेते, अब पेशेंट्स बहुत बढ़ गए हैं तो हम 30-40% से करते हैं. बट जस्ट knowing what your customer is thinking there and then was very very important to us, and that really shaped the application. एक दूसरी चीज़ जो फाउंडर्स करते हैं कि वो अपने सोल्यूशन में अटक जाते हैं, यानी कि वो इटरेट नहीं करते. अगर उन्होंने एक मेथड, एक पेमेंट स्ट्रक्चर, एक तरीका ढूंढा है कि हमें इसी तरह मार्केट को रीच आउट करना है, तो वो कोई नई चीज़ नहीं ट्राई करेंगे. मेरा बिजनेस मॉडल जब से कंपनी शुरू हुई है कोई 20 से 25 बार चेंज हो चुका है, और अभी भी चेंज हो रहा है और चेंज होता रहेगा. वो इसलिए कि जैसे जैसे आप ग्रो करते हैं आप नई नई चीज़ें सीखते हैं, आप लोगों को देखते हैं वो क्या कर रहे हैं, आप दूसरी इंडस्ट्रीज की प्रैक्टिसेस देखते हैं. सो डोंट होल्ड योर सेल्फ इन टू वन शेल. Keep creating new shells that you can break, so that you can keep innovating within your product and your solution also. ताकि आप जिस तरह कंट्री इवॉल्व हो रही है या इंडस्ट्री इवॉल्व हो रही है, आप उसके साथ साथ इवॉल्व कर सकें.
Absolutely, I think that's a very valid point. And now I'd like Mansoor Saab to talk a little bit about how how does agri-tech, have that potential to facilitate? Of course, you talk about women empowerment, you were talking about economic empowerment, of course. But with the right kind of policies and programs in place, all of these ladies who are working in these different fields, they talked about catering to a particular challenge. But agri-tech, maybe, there's such itni diversity here, but there's also utni, I think, room for opportunity lies in there. So yeah, my question to you would just be, how is that facilitating women economic empowerment, and how do you see these young students or hackers or developers really sort of focusing on a problem? Because सारा ने एक बात की कि हमने टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप तो कर ली, but then you have to keep talking to them and make them see or understand कि is it easy for them to use, is it easy for them to understand. So being on the ground is very different from us, sitting at the back of our computers and sort of coding and developing all of that.
Absolutely. So that's a very loaded question, Aksam. I'll try to start with one of the aspects.
There's a lot of pressure when there's only one gentleman on the panel.
No, absolutely a pleasure. So basically, देखिए जो one point I want to make before I move to the rest of the comments is that with the kind of framework we have with telcos, right? So telcos have the scale. So we have access to 48 million customers, which means we have access to that many wallets. And any startup that wants to sort of come up with a solution for the masses, they have that ability to go into a subscription model and tap into that base. Interestingly, agri-tech की अगर मैं बात करूँ तो with despite the opportunities, we see so many small startups struggling, and we see that some of them have done well in terms of cracking the basic business model or raising initial investment. I still feel that many of them, even people within the agri-tech space, don't know about. तो आई थिंक एक चीज़ जो कि सबको एक्सप्लोर करनी चाहिए वो है कि फिनटेक या मोबाइल वॉलेट्स या टेलकोस के साथ पार्टनर करके यू कैन सॉल्व दैट प्रॉब्लम ऑफ गोइंग टू मार्केट. The other aspect that this kind of a technology framework enables our partners with is कि हमारे पास जो analytics है वो बहुत ज़्यादा होती है. So we have a lot of data. We have ability to survey customers, and I think as part of the जो velocity का program है, there are so many startups that have benefited and continue to benefit from it. So I'll give you an example. One of the startups we had in velocity was Zari Directory के नाम से एक product थी. And Aisha is a lady who heads that enterprise. I think it's called Park Agrimart, and she did a good job with the product, and we were able to sort of extend that offering for the entire value chain. Now that doesn't happen with all the startups that Velocity works with, but if the use case is scalable, we're always looking for scalable use cases. So एक aspect तो ये है. And other one I have recently sort of been contemplating a lot on is that with the problems that you have in Pakistan, be it logistics, so logistics digitization is again a big opportunity. Across the globe ही है, but Pakistan में तो बिल्कुल unautomated industry untapped है. Same is the case with agri-tech, like you said. So the piece is so big in terms of the size of the pie, because you're like a few hundred billion की economy, 20% is agri, अगर 20% भी हम ले लें, so that's a big number. And then in terms of the scale, so 50-60% का livelihood उससे linked है. तो any one problem भी अगर हम end to end देखें, तो it can't be solved by one enterprise. So I think in these bigger problem के जो landscapes हैं, इसके अंदर it calls for a lot of partnerships between startups. And what we have done in the recent past is that we have some partners on board who are good with their call center abilities. We have now other partners who are good with IoT. So I'm trying to make them join hands so that they can then come up with an end-to-end solution. So I would really encourage everybody who's listening and watching to explore partnerships in order to scale. And some of the answers lie with partnering with telcos and mobile wallets and fintechs and so on, and others lie with partnering with people in the ecosystem. And also I feel that the representation that we see here is very heartening. So many ladies doing great stuff, but the kind of people being on the other side of the table, the people we meet on a very frequent basis, I still think that the number needs to go up. And there is so much that can be done in terms of helping people who want to do good things, but don't have that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, that also brings me to my next question on, for each one of you, what is it that you see in the tech industry landscape today? And what does it mean to you personally? And I ask, and I love asking entrepreneurs this question, because it always gets me some really interesting answers. That, how has, when you probably entered this field, and as Anam said, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It's really not for. It gives you sleepless nights, and it gives you a lot more than what's glorified, I think, in the media and otherwise. So what are you seeing right now, and what does it mean to you personally?
Can I
And
can yeah.
yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think I'm seeing a lot of hope for the entrepreneurial ecosystem. When I started. I think I'm the older of these entrepreneurs, older lot. So at that time, we didn't have an ecosystem in place. We truly didn't have enough people to talk about entrepreneurship, but now we do. We have a lot of interest from the from international audiences, be it investors, be it funders. We also see a lot of entrepreneurs changing things for the better around us. So when 5 years back we didn't see any bikia riding people from one place to another. We didn't see Kareem. We didn't see small food delivery companies coming up. We didn't see someone like Airlift delivering our groceries. So I think all these examples tell us that entrepreneurs are solving a big problem one by one. And it is about time that they're coming to difficult industries as well, such as agri-tech, such as health tech, such as fintech. They're all attracting a lot of audience now. So I'm very hopeful, and I think this is a great time to be in that ecosystem and evolve yourself also. So I'm hugely optimistic about it.
That's very good to hear. So Anam, Halima, Khala, I'd love to hear from you also on where do you see this going, of course, and what does it mean to you personally?
I'll echo what Sarah said. It's a great time to be part of this ecosystem. I think we've been able to build a community around this tech ecosystem, and it's very, very exciting to see the kind of talent that is coming up, and taking those risks to be able to solve like super difficult problems, right? It is we're seeing quite a lot of investments coming into the ecosystem as well. We're seeing some really great, even the ecosystem in terms of just human capital, right? Like we're seeing that shift happen. People are willing to come and work for startups. They're willing to take those kinds of risks. So it's an exciting time to be part of it.
I couldn't agree more with what Halima and Dr. Sara said. I think we're lucky, the kind of attention that Pakistan is getting and the kind of good work that's coming out. It's not, it is a huge market and there's a lot of young energy being put in it. There are two, three, I feel, my wish list for how the ecosystem should develop, I think, with regards to especially women as role models. Mansoor Saab also alluded to this, that they're few and far out. And I think that it's really important to have that because, the challenges you face, if you have somebody who's already faced them and you can speak with them about these things, then it can really help uplift you out of it. And there are a lot of cultural context to this as well. I'd like to just share a short story. That's something very close to my heart, something very small, but I feel like has a much more layering to it. So I was attending a conference in the US and I was crossing immigration in Pakistan and Karachi airport. And, as per security protocol, they asked me who I was, what my occupation was, where I was headed to. So I told them I'm attending this conference and, I have my own technology company and we do online education. So he said, hold on. So you were a teacher. So I said, yes, I'm very proud to be a teacher, but I'm also a technology owner. And the guy literally had to take two steps back and wanted to do more research that what I'm saying is actually legit and how can, a young person have their own technology company. And it just wasn't, the stereotype images weren't really fitting in. And then I was like, yes, I'm just in education and that's it. And when I see Halima and Khala, and they're dealing with all of these sectors that are traditionally been very dominated by males, and now that CASA is evolving more and more towards technology, I find it really hard even to recruit women. I mean, there are not enough women who are in these spaces, who are back-end developers and so on. And that's what I wish for the ecosystem moving forward. We need more representation. It's a much more comfortable environment if there is diversity of gender, and the responsibility falls less on you as just the only woman in the office. So that's one thing I would really like to see the ecosystem evolve towards, and I'm pretty sure it will, because there are people who are sitting now and talking and role modeling and bearing the torch.
I think that conversation has sort of changed, but it's only changed to a certain degree, and I think there's a lot more room to evolve over there, because बहुत दफा ये ऐसा होगा. I'm sure that Sara जो मर्जी कर ले, she'll always be the doctor first, and the health tech entrepreneur, or the change maker later, and Halima also, if she has experience in banking, or she has experience in the financial industry, so that those traditional roles have sort of, obviously, as you said, and breaking away from it takes a long time sometimes, but I think it's good that we have an ecosystem that recognizes it, and there are enough people to get together and at least have that conversation, and share that load, that okay, you're in it too, so it makes it a bit better. So over to you, Khala.
Well, I like to break that into two parts. The first part, where we are all seeing in the post-COVID era, the world is digitizing very rapidly. So with digitization, remotely working is an option now. So women who were first restricted to their homes, or people women with responsibilities, who were actually reluctant to go out of the home because of the responsibilities, or they were thinking they cannot give enough time to their family or their kids because of their job, can now work remotely because of the digitized world. So that's something which is going to help us in the future evolve more. And being in a Pakistan society, there's a huge difference in number of women we have in our country. So the female population is larger than the male population, as we all know. So in this scenario, with the digitized world, when the women will start to work, and they have already started to work, I guess we'll have a better economical society with that. We'll be economically more stable then.
Sorry, I was on mute. I think that goes really well with what even Mansoor Saab was saying. At the end of the day, you have to see, and just Apnika, plug in those right pieces. It's not going to be like a short journey. And even for now, the fact that all, that there are different entrepreneurs working in each one of these fields, or that we have multiple people working on different solutions when it comes to challenges in each one of these industry verticals. I think that goes to show that we've come a long way, but I think there's a lot more that each one of us also has to do in our own capacity. So Mansoor Sahab, I'd really like to now, of course, take the put this on your shoulders to answer on how you've seen this evolve, and that participation of women that you earlier spoke about. If you could just detail out on how that's changed in the last few years, um, and yeah, where do you see it going with regards to technology?
Yeah, sure. So I think one thing that can be expected with as things evolve and as more women come forward is that you'll see things changing automatically, because the only way to break stereotypes uh, is for a certain number is for a critical mass to break them and come forward as success stories. I think what needs to be done, one of the things that needs to be done, is to highlight these success stories. I think I think Khala also just mentioned that if you look at how easy it is now for ladies to do anything they like, and to balance the different roles, and even for men and people who are geographically constrained. So I feel that the success stories need to come out. They need to be amplified, and so that other people who are on the verge or on the tipping point where they want to make those decisions, want to make those bold decisions and take those risks, they feel encouraged. And I think it's the same with the Gen Z, that you have so many of these bright young people who often surprise you. Who you often, when you interview somebody who has about 2 years of experience, and you're expecting that they'll be coming forward with certain kinds of responses in terms of their experiences now are sort of, as things have evolved, the kind of exposure people now have. Uh, I think that a lot of things now need to be the way you look at certain stereotypes, or the way we have certain perceptions about women or these younger people. I think that a lot of them need to be changed. So like I said earlier, I think amplifying success is a major factor. And as time goes on, you'll find that people will find it normal. For what was once considered as something really out of the blue, out of the ordinary,
Yeah.
you'll feel that people will find it. It'll be the opposite eventually. Somebody who isn't making the best use of their abilities will be looked at as someone who needs to, perhaps explore more when it comes to self-awareness and so on. So that's just some input.
So I think that sounds very, very hopeful, and I think we're on that path already. And a lot of these programs, a lot of what even Telenor Velocity and these guys are doing with the hackathon is trying to really focus on building that sense of community and getting people together to really code and think and hack into real solutions built by real people. I'd just like to get some quick closing comments from each one of you. What would be your advice to young girls and boys who are trying to develop these solutions? We see a lot of that passion, especially in their early, I think 20s and 30s. I think a lot of people are really, trying to change the world and trying to change everything or fix everything. But what's that one thing that that's really helped you in your entrepreneurship or your own journeys that you'd like to give back? Shalima, we
I
can start
think,
with you.
yeah. I think one thing that I would say to young entrepreneurs would be take your time to understand the problem that you want to solve for. And like Anam said, go through that exercise of figuring out what keeps you awake, what is that problem you want to solve for. So unless we're not fixated with the problem, you will not be able to figure out what solution or evolve with the market and evolve with the customer. So understand that problem and take time to understand it.
I think my advice would be that it's a very cliche sentence, but Rome wasn't built in a day. हर चीज को करने में it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of failure. There's failure every day. As Halima said, and as Anam also said, you have to love something so much कि बार बार फेल होने के बाद भी आपका दिल चाहे कि बार बार किसी नए तरीके से उसको अप्रोच करें. जब तक आपका ये दिल नहीं चाह रहा, जब तक आपकी ये resilience नहीं है, it's very difficult to get into the long game because it doesn't happen in a day. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes a lot of sleepless nights. It takes nights where you will sleep a little more also out of depression. Just putting another spin to it. लेकिन at the end of it, if it is connected to your purpose, the thing that you started with, then it's all worth it. But don't do it as something that you want to do it in the 20s because it is cool. Because you don't want to get into a corporate for the first 3 years after you've come out of university, which is something that I see a lot often now. Do it because you feel strongly about it, because you can give your 10-15 years to it, because you're honest with it, and because you really think that you can make a difference if you build the solution. And only you can answer this. If you look at yourself in the mirror at night and say कि यार मैं वाकई मेरे होने से फर्क पड़ रहा है, मैं नहीं होती तो ये ऐसे ही चल रहा होता है जैसे चल रहा है. If the answer is yes, then you shouldn't be doing it. If the answer is no, I've made a difference, then you will keep doing it every day, and in the end you will see that it actually starts making a difference.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. So Anam and Khala, will hear from you first.
डॉक्टर सारा और हलीमा ने जो बात की उसके बाद तो माइक ड्रॉप होना चाहिए ना. I mean, I feel motivated now. I'm full like charged up. Let's do this. But I think it's very important to be optimistic. Failures honge. Keep believing in yourself. Keep believing in your journey, and to have a lot of self-awareness. And not just plan for the short term, but keep a medium-term, long-term plan in mind while you do this. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I want to add to that. There are two things. Just know what industry you're working in and how is it moving. And the other part is do not lose your focus in the everyday task. Keep your focus there, and you'll eventually be there, and you'll eventually achieve what you're focusing at. Just that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Lastly, from you, Mansoor Saab.
जी सो आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ गुड थिंग्स हैव ऑलरेडी बीन सेड थोड़ा सा एक चीज़ जो मुझे लगता है स्टार्टअप्स को एज होता है दैट्स द एजिलिटी दे हैव राइट सो
Yeah.
देर लीन देर हंग्री देर यू नो सो एनर्जी लेवल्स हाई होते हैं आई थिंक वन थिंग दैट should be focused on is to fail fast, like we now very frequently hear in the corporate world as well. So if you're able to do those, make those wrong decisions and try those things out, I think it's a balancing act between doing your research, like somebody said, but then you can't get obsessed with being perfect. So if you balance between the two, fail fast, learn quickly, move forward, I think you should be able to do well. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think I couldn't have summed it up better. But I'd just like to quickly thank all my panelists for today. I think it's been very insightful, and I hope that all participants who are sending in their entries get some clarity on how people have successfully built. Even though it hasn't been easy for any one of them in any of their fields, but if they can do it, so can you. And all of them I know in a way, I think their personal capacity also are very willing to share that knowledge. And I think that's been something which is very new. I've been in the industry for 10 plus years, and I've seen that change where people are more and more open about sharing their actual challenges instead of just being, okay, I'm not going to tell you because, what if you figure it out before me, or what if you like do it better than me? What you have is very unique to who you are, and what you're trying to do. So I think that's something that I'd like to, take. I'd like you to take that message home. Very quickly, I'd just like to say that applications for the Telenor Velocity Google hackathon are open till the 2nd of October. They're accepting applications in each one of these industries, including fintech, edtech, cybersecurity, agri-tech, and health tech. With that, thank you very much for having us today, to Telenor Velocity and Google, and thank you to all our panelists for taking out the time. With this, we'll close, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Aksa.